Evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock. Tonight is Tuesday, January 28th, joint meeting of the Board of Finance. I'm going to call the Board of Finance to order with the Board of Selectmen.
I'll also call this meeting for the Board of Selectmen to order.
And we're going to continue with our capital and operations budget presentations. The first one is the Tax Department, tab 11, the old days, 1155, Tax Collector. Hello, Pat. How are you? Nice to see you.
Thank you. Would you like me to talk about it, or would you like to start with questions?
Good. Thanks,
Why don't you tell us what you want to tell us, and then we'll ask questions.
Okay. Let's see. We're in the middle of January collections. I hope most of you know that.
No, what you're supposed to say is, hope most of you have paid. That's what
That
you're
you're
supposed
paid.
to say. Okay, there you go.
That
All
most
right,
of
go
you
ahead.
have paid. Monday, the 3rd, is the last day to pay without penalty. That's because the first falls on Saturday, so the state gives us this extension. We'll be open till 7 o'clock. We were open last Saturday from 9 to 12, and we had I think we had 11 people. So, but everyone who came said thank you. It was much nicer to come on Saturdays. And it's hard when they work and they want to come in person now. A lot of people are afraid to put things in the mail.
Right.
So if you've been reading any of the articles, you know that's been an issue in Woodbridge. Other towns too, but we got hit fairly badly. At least 7 people who came into the office said that their checks had been watched and they had to deal with their banks. One gentleman, who I felt terribly bad for, he wrote a check for $710 and change for his car. His car was due. The check was cashed for $7,100 and change, just within a couple of days. And anyway, okay, on to other things. As you know, or maybe you don't know, I don't believe in tax sales. So I have always been fairly careful about how I handle it, but we do foreclosures. We have 4 foreclosures right now going on. They've been on for a while. One of them is in payment plan with it, so that's good. The other 3, hopefully, we're gonna hear something fairly shortly, we'll see. New this year, for the first time, we hired a marshal. Actually, we hired a company out of Waterbury. There are 3 marshals who do it. We started off with 90 things to do, personal property and motor vehicle. We do not do real estate. They did an amazing job collecting for us. And we probably collected with them close to $50,000. What amazes me about it is that a lot of them were people who owed July. You know, we did get a lot of back taxes too, but they pay the marshal immediately. We send notes, we make phone calls, we try everything, and they don't pay us. But they sure pay the marshal. It's just amazing. And the fee is high. It's 15% fee they charge. And they charge for administrative fees, and they're allowed to do that by state law. We also make a $6 fee on the ones we send to them, which gets added right back into our collection and our quality, which is our computer system. In March, we are going to reinstate something that we hadn't done for a long time, and that is we're going to charge fees for printing out bills and for copying, for giving receipts. I don't think we have ever given out as many receipts and made as many copies as we have this month. It just gotten way out of hand. And so we will charge $2 every time, but we'll start publicizing it in March. So by the time we get to July, people will know, and it will be on their bills, and we will try to make it very clear that this is part of what we're doing. Our collection rate has stayed still pretty good. We're kind of waiting, hopefully that these foreclosures will bring in a good sum of money to help out for the year. Any questions or concerns about?
Anybody have any questions? I actually have a question.
Good.
My recollection is, for the last several years, your tax collection rate is over 95%. Am I correct?
It's over 99%.
Over 99. So if it's over 99%, why is it necessary to have marshals go out?
It's a good question.
I only ask good questions.
Yeah. It is a good question.
What's the, help me
Because
understand that.
we really felt we were reaching a point where people were ignoring us. And it started happening last year, but this July, we really noticed it. And I just really felt it was time to do something.
More people than usual, or the same people over and over?
It's always the same people, but this year we added to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is your tax collection rate going to dramatically, I mean, are you at 100%?
No, there's only a couple of towns that do 100, and they sell their tax,
Okay.
they sell their taxes to
Okay.
companies, yeah.
Okay.
We've stayed about 99.6. I don't think we've ever dropped below the top 10
Well, still pretty
out of
impressive.
169
Right,
towns.
right.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Is there another way to get receipts, like email receipts? Or
Oh,
was
sure.
printing
You could go
out was
on-
the only way?
You could go online and print it out.
Oh, okay,
It's
so
right there.
they were, people are asking for that in addition to the ability
It's
to
all
do
right
that?
there.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank
They
you.
could print out their bills too. I mean, and bring that with them if they can't find theirs. The biggest issue with January is that people tend to forget that in July, we sent a 3-part bill, July, January, and their receipt. And they can't find the January bill. And that's the biggest issue. But
Uh-huh.
to send out bills in January, you'd have to remember that we send out approximately 3,500 real estate bills, and we would have to resend all of those. They'd all have to be printed and mailed, and the cost would be probably another $6,000, $7,000,
Right.
which doesn't quite make sense. When it is online. People, the other thing we've run into is people saying, "Oh, I can't pay online with a check." Well, you actually can. You can either, charge it, which they do charge 2.5%. We're still one of the lowest towns at that. Most towns are 3%. Or you can do a debit card for $3.95, or you can ask your bank to send us a check. And I receive a lot of those, where people just go online and tell their bank to send us a check. Comes in a stack in an envelope from banks.
Can you please clarify what the cost of the Marshal service is and
Doesn't
how
cost
that,
anything to us.
so it's a free service
It's a
and
free
just a
service. No, it's
gain
not
in,
free to
No,
the
they
people who
get
are having to
percent.
pay.
Yeah.
no, they get 15%.
Right.
They get 15% plus admin fees.
plus admin fees. So I'm curious to learn more about the cost benefit of that relative.
There's none
Oh,
to the person paying the taxes. They're being
talking-
charged. We're not.
We're not being charged
Oh,
for that?
no, we're not being charged
Okay.
anything. We collect the revenue that they collect for us.
Okay.
They bring it in to us, and these particular marshals are really responsible. We've been extremely pleased. Everything is documented, and they bring us copies. We receive a copy of the check. They make sure when they receive a check that it clears before they bring us the money. Sometimes they collect cash, and if they do, then they let us know, because sometimes people have to have their registrations cleared so they can register. But only for cash, don't do it for checks.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, but this is a last resort type of activity. So in other words, if you've got $100,000 in outstanding, you're saying it's going to be very difficult or impossible to collect on. You give it to them.
Right.
You get back 85,000 of that if they're able to collect it, and you're paying them 15,000. So it's either take the loss or take the hit on the full amount or collect.
Well,
that.
that's not what she
So-
said.
so-
And it's not costing us anything.
No, that's
So
what
we
I'm
get the
saying.
full
she's
amount.
saying
The
you get
taxpayer.
the
Can I
100.
clarify that? So, particularly with personal property, it's difficult to collect because if somebody doesn't
Oh,
want to
it's
pay it,
worse.
there's not much you can do. It's not like you could.
Say that.
So, we get the full amount of the taxes. The person who owes the taxes has to pay the 15% plus the
Okay.
admin fee.
So they're really paying in that circumstance $115,000.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
And before we send it to the marshal, we send out a letter to everyone we're going to send to the marshal, and it says, this is the demand, and you have a certain amount of time to pay, or it will go to a marshal. We will take further action.
Pat, can I ask you a question? Is there a point in time after the taxes are due, right before you're sending it to the marshal? You're notifying those people, but is it possible that we could just send out a notice to everyone just to say, you've reached the limit, you'll be contacted by a marshal unless you go online today and pay and give the link? Would that be helpful, or what do you think?
Well, we do send reminders.
Right, to the people who haven't paid.
They were a last resort.
Right. I'm
We
just
had
saying.
already sent out reminders to all of those people, and then we sent the demand, which was the last thing. And then hardly anyone came. And we said, this is a demand for payment. Can't be much, and as Tony was saying, the worst to collect is personal property.
Okay.
It really is very difficult.
Okay, any other questions for Pat? I think the message here is 99.6% is pretty good, and people don't throw away the section
second half
of the
of
bill.
your
Of the
bill,
bill.
please.
Hang on to it, okay?
I do have just one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
Apologies.
Oh, I'm
But
sorry.
I've noticed there's a 52% increase in the legal ads required by state.
Oh,
Can you
talk to the
just-
newspapers, please.
What is that about? Because only a few years ago, 2 years, I guess 3, it was only $300.
Because we used to be able to publish in what was then the Woodbridge
Town news.
page.
So this is another.
Yeah, and now we have, we're,
Can we bring
we're
the
bound to
Woodbridge
use the
Town
register until the state changes the law.
Okay.
And that, they haven't been able, they've tried for years to get it to
Right.
change, and they
Right.
just can't get them to change
Right.
it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Pat.
You're welcome.
Town clerk, number 1125. Good evening, Kim, how are you?
Good, how are you?
All right, go ahead.
Do you want me to just do a general overview?
Sure.
Since this is the first time I've done the budget, tried to fall in line with what has always been in place. There were a couple of places I had to increase. We're going on to a new land record system, and I might have gone a little bit higher because we are not sure of the exact costs. I'm meeting with them Thursday to go over. There's a couple of things that were in the contract that I'm going to see if we can do in-house to lower the cost until I meet with them and see, because right now they're doing full indexing. I'd like to go to a hybrid or where we index ourselves. Not sure what the savings will be because it's based on a document basis. It depends on how much we record.
This is the land records text service line.
Yes,
we're
the
talking
IQS
about.
system.
52212, in case anybody
Oh, should I
was looking
be-
for it.
would that be more
I'm just
helpful?
telling people in case they were looking for it. That's fine.
The other place that I requested more was for my assistant town clerk salary base. It's up a little bit higher than the 2.5. The reasoning behind that is we have increased the town clerk's office hours so we conform with the town hall. We used to close at 4. I would be in from 8 to 4, but the staff was in from 8:30 to 4. In order for training, we have a lot of training going on this year, and in order to provide adequate coverage where the office is never without somebody who knows what they're doing in there, I thought it would be beneficial to have people in a little bit longer, maybe a full day here and there, because you don't get the whole picture of the office if you're in there half day. Same thing in the morning doesn't happen at the end of day. If there just had 3 COVID cases in the office, we were down staff. if you have that, you have to, the last person standing's got to be able to know. Nobody else can just come in and run our office without knowing the whole process. So basically, those were my two parts that I increased, and I feel it's probably justified. Our staff, the assistants, are being paid less than other. I have two most recent job postings, and we are on the low end, so it's not like they are being overpaid by any means at all for what is required of them. We're going to be on a new election system, the new land record system, the new birth system. So there's a lot of training coming up this year.
Any questions? I mean, all in all, it's very straightforward, and the numbers are not startling in any way, so.
Well, that's a good
We're
thing.
happy to see that,
She was
bottom
able
line.
to find cost savings in other areas, which is a couple of.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm looking at
All
here.
is said and done, it's not a bad,
No, it's pretty good.
Not too bad.
pretty good, good job.
That's what
Uh,
we're seeing.
Any questions? I think we're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Registrar of Voters,
Yeah, next.
11:30.
Right.
Good evening.
Who's doing the computer? The slides?
Hi. I'm going to just talk for a couple of sentences, give you a general overview of a couple of things. We survived last year.
And see if we, I know
Crazy.
we've gotten a lot of comments in regards to the volume on the meetings. Please,
I'm sorry.
please, yeah, please use the
Okay, is
microphone.
that better?
Thank you.
As I say, we survived 2024 with all the new early voting process, and it was crazy, but we did it. This year, obviously, our budget will be a lot less because we don't have all the elections that we had last year. There were no primaries, as far as I know. And there will be two new things this year. We're going to get a new voter registration system, so there's going to be a lot of testing involved in that. That is hopefully supposed to start April-May timeframe to train the registrars and their staff. And then we're also getting some new tabulators, thank goodness for that, because the other ones were really, we're putting chewing gum on them to keep going practically. So we will have some new tabulators, which will be good. I think that the early voting process went quite well last year, in spite of the fact that it was really all new, and all our staff were all new. I think they said we may be actually using tabulators in early voting this year. People walked out last year because they didn't put their ballot in the tabulator, and they didn't know what was going to happen to it. So this year, I think they're going to have the actual tabulator for every day, which means we're going to use the gym for 14 days because we can lock the tabulators up in the closet there. We cannot do it here. It just wouldn't be safe or secure. That's pretty much all I have as far as general information about what's going on. So Pennell is going to do the number part of this, and he's got a slide up there for you.
High-tech couple slides. Sorry, you got to turn around. Obviously, the big thing this year, we did all the normal stuff, but was early voting, and so I know the Finance Committee has seen these numbers, although they're slightly different because they're now. I updated, I've been refining them. But the cost of early voting this year was roughly $27,000. I got to get my slides so I can read it. Roughly $34,000. Sorry, for the calendar year, and $28,500 for the fiscal year, because the presidential preference primary was in the prior fiscal year. That was about $6,000 more than budget. But remember, we budgeted for this at a time when we didn't know how it was going to be implemented. So I'm actually fairly happy with that. The official budget you have has an amendment. We're credited with $20,000 of, or a little over $20,000 of grant money from the state. I guess there's a federal grant too. As it turns out, we'll come in right on budget at roughly $90,000. So, because we did budget for this. Moving into this year, Ann already talked about the tabulators, but I just thought I'd give you a picture of the new tabulators. I cut off the part at the bottom where we are told that this is the future of voting. okay? I'm not quite sure that's true, but these will be much better. And we're not paying for the tabulators themselves. We only have to pay for maintenance, you know, as we did with the prior tabulators. Although I understand, Mika and Tony, that there's an excruciating lease process in Susan that we will be going through in order to get these tabulators. So with respect to the budget, next slide, a little variance analysis. So I'm going from the projected budget, not the budget with the money in it. Basically, we're going to be about $11,000 less this year. Primarily, we don't have a primary. The municipal election costs less really to do than a general election because we don't have two districts, we only have one district. We're spending a little bit more money because we got all this new technology and we've got to do training, and we'll probably have to do a mock election so the public can get familiar with the tabulators. And then $900 of, you know, miscellaneous stuff. So, but overall, we are coming in lower because of, and that's our cycle, will be lower in the municipal election year and higher in the general election year. So any questions?
Well, I have two comments. Number one, anything that's lower is always, we like lower. Good. I just want to comment that I thought you guys did a phenomenal job last year under very complicated circumstances, and it was quite something to see how beautifully it was executed. So that's just my personal
It worked out
opinion, but
okay overall, yeah.
yeah.
Mostly
Beautiful.
Anna did a lot. I mean, when it comes to detail and making sure things are reconciled, she's very good.
I knew that, Pennell. I knew that Anna gets all the credit, but that's okay. I'm giving it
I'm not gonna be in the newspapers.
Yeah.
to her. There you go. Beth, you had something.
Yeah, I have a question, actually more from the general public that I've been asked. We got the, booths where you can drop off, you know, put your
Beth, talk louder. I can't hear you.
The ballot boxes.
ballot box.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Should I use this?
You talking for absentee ballots? The outside box?
Yeah, anything like that. Does that have to have, maybe the town clerk knows as well, is that required to have a camera on it all
It
the
does.
time?
And in fact,
Do
it
you
does
run
have a camera
Do you
on it.
run it all the time or just during election
No,
time?
just during elections.
I don't know. I didn't
No.
ask the time.
I think,
They run all
Well,
the time.
all the time.
Interesting, wow, okay.
I don't know if they turn the.
Someone asked me about it and I said, I think
I don't know
so.
if they run it all the time or not. That would be a Tony.
We do.
They do.
Oh, that's right next to the mailbox, right? So
Yeah.
that's also good too, I guess.
Yes, because I
Well
hear
done.
they're stealing mail out of the
Okay,
mailbox
so,
here.
Yeah.
good. I will
Is
get
it
back to
out?
my person that asked me, thank you.
You're
Good to
welcome.
know.
Is that Dropbox out 24/7, 365, or you only put it
No,
out for the election?
just during the election.
Okay.
No, it's
Oh,
there.
is it out?
It's there, but it's locked.
It's there, but it says
and
its
it's
kiosk is
cemented.
closed.
Maybe
Oh, I
one
didn't
at
realize
one
that,
at a
okay.
time.
Yeah.
Answer it one at a time. Okay.
It does say kiosk is closed when I drove by it to see, but I couldn't see any cameras, so I had to ask.
Okay. So the answer is that the ballot box is out all the time, but it's locked. Okay.
It is.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions, David?
Can you tell if extended voting did we have a higher percentage of votes than normal, or was there an effect?
I would say that the total turnout, and Anna, correct me if I'm wrong, the total turnout was on a par with what we see during presidential elections.
Actually, I thought it was a little lower this year than.
Well, it was
than
lower
I
than the
anticipated.
2020, but not by much. But we had like, between absentee ballots and early voting, almost 30% of the voters used that. So what I can't, it's hard to tell if it would have been lower without that or not. I just,
Right.
you know, I
We did
don't
get a
know.
lot of
Based on
positive.
past,
We had a lot of
It's
positive
consistent with
comments.
past elections,
A lot
yeah.
of people liked the early voting.
I will say to everybody, the legislature, or the Secretary of State's office and the Registrars Association is lobbying for the number of days of early voting to be reduced. And so if you happen to see any of our wonderful legislators in the state, please reinforce to them that, you know, we spent, for a small town, $34,000 on early voting is a lot of money. And it was really driven by the number of days, and if we could reduce that, that would be great.
You can write them a letter too, which would be good.
Other questions?
They take emails too. Panel, despite getting new machines, which, yay, congratulations, we're finally getting machines that aren't not going to melt in the summertime. They're more expensive to maintain. I see. We're budgeting $1,500 for maintenance, whereas we were at roughly 750 in the past, right?
They are more expensive to maintain. They're about double the
Awesome.
cost. Yeah. But I mean,
It's not like we have a
Yes.
choice, but I find that
No.
interesting.
yeah, yeah. But the machines we had were, I mean, they didn't even make anymore.
Yeah.
So,
My concern about
Yeah.
that is we don't know yet what kind of environment they need. They're telling us, and we're not sure if that closet over there has that environment. So I'm not sure what that's gonna, because we're not gonna be able to fit them all in the vault that we have. They're gonna have to stay in the closet over, off the gym. And I don't know what they did when they remodeled the gym. I know they have air conditioning in there now, so I'm assuming it goes into the closet as well. I don't know. I'll have to find out. Should be okay. It does.
Can I also ask a question about the tabulators? The new tabulators will be here for the November election?
well, we hope they'll be here for the referendum, but we'll definitely be here for the November election.
The Amity referendum in May?
We'd like to have them here for the Amity referendum. We're gonna, we haven't talked about this, but we've been talking briefly about maybe holding a mock election in the summer so that voters can come in and get familiar with the new machines.
All right, and then my only question, it's still a paper ballot, so you're still gonna
Yes.
have the paper receipts? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's still a paper ballot.
You
It
could always
goes in-
hand count them if you needed to, right?
Yes, oh yeah.
Okay.
The machine has a number of capabilities that will make audits much better.
Thank
than-
you.
yeah.
Any other questions, thoughts? Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good to see you both. Library. Oh, there you are. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Your choice if you want to do capital first or operating first.
I think I'll do operating first.
Okay.
First, I'd just like to thank, we got Tom Chernow, Andy Doucette, and Tina Brogadier here from the Library Commission. So thank you to them for coming out to support the library. And I just wanted to start to say, say that we've had an exciting and busy year at the library. We had 502 programs with over 4,900 attendees, which is up 29% from the year before. And we had 67,274 people at the library, which is up 12% from the year before. So the library is still busy, and that's especially exciting because and a lot of library directors are worried that, with the rise of digital materials and stuff, that maybe people will sit at home on their phones. And we do have, digital materials are an increasing part of our circulation, but people are obviously still coming out to the library, which is wonderful to see and is very exciting. So for the operating budget, our proposal is an increase of 2.6% or $23,118. That comes from $27,237 in total cost increases and $4,119 in cost reductions. And of that 23,000, about almost 87% of that comes from two areas, one being the contracted cost of living salary increases, and two are from higher utility costs. So specifically, 15,831 comes from the cost of living salary increases. And I did want to point out, because I feel like people probably will end up noticing this, that if you look at our salary lines, which is at the top of our budget, that the regular assistance line is up 6.68%, which is obviously a little bit higher than would be anticipated. However, the line below that went down by 3.15%, and that has because of some salary changes we made this past fiscal year. We're transferring some money from the part-time line to the full-time line, which was approved by the Board of Selectmen, and that does basically wash out there. So just so you know, so there's no actually change in the amount of money we're asking for. It's just put into two different lines. Also, there's $7,500 in the three utility lines for electricity, natural gas, and water. That is unfortunate that we have to do this, but essentially we're just trying to bring up these lines to what we've been spending. We actually overspent all three lines last year, so we're trying just to catch up basically to where it is at now. And particularly natural gas is where the real driver of this increase comes from. That has basically doubled over the past 2 years. And so that's the 87%. Everything else that we're asking for is again, obviously about 13% if you do the math. That includes $1,794, which is a 3.9% increase for the automation line, which is for fees for our consortium Lion, which if you don't know what line is, a consortium of 30 local libraries. We have a shared catalog and a delivery system, ebook collection, all this kinds of stuff. They're definitely excellent, and we definitely are able to offer a lot more to our patrons than we otherwise would. Just as an example, we got 11,000 items in from line last fiscal year that we got through this delivery system and through this shared catalog, which makes it very easy and quick. So that's just an example of like what we get, is all these books that we don't have or that maybe just aren't on the shelf right now that we're able to get very quickly from these other libraries. A 9.2% increase for professional development dues. That is basically just passing on an increase in the membership fees for the Connecticut Library Consortium, which is an organization we are part of, in which they contract with various vendors for us. Save us a lot of money. Actually, last year they saved us $33,120, so that's obviously the $900 is a pretty good return on investment. That's a pretty good investment. $500 is increase in 54710 programs and publicity. That is, we'd like to pay for an honorarium for our new Poet Laureate program. We're working to get the first ever Woodbridge Poet Laureate, which hopefully we hope to start looking for that this week. Hopefully we will have an ad out there, you know, just so if anybody watching this is a poet and wants to be the Woodbridge Poet Laureate, contact me. Also we're asking for an increase, a 2% increase in the books line. We had received an increase in that last year to restore the budget cuts that were made during the pandemic. However, we're still asking for more because that still brings us to an amount that was originally set in fiscal year 2014, which is obviously 11 years ago, and there's been a lot of inflation since then, in particular because, and I know I've said this before, digital materials, which are an increasing part of our circulation, are very expensive, significantly more expensive than physical books. And those are the areas where we increase the budget. The areas where we found ways to decrease our budget are we cut the buyback sick line by 32%. That is basically just making it reflect what it actually has been over the past 3 years. For whatever reason, we've seen that line go way down, and I think that is probably because we've had a lot of staff turnover, and new staff tend to not have accrued enough time to use this benefit. And so maybe eventually they will, and we'll adjust it when and if that happens. And also, we've cut $450 from our repair and maintenance machine line, which is basically for photocopiers. I think the town has managed to negotiate, in particular Karen, has managed to negotiate excellent contracts, better contracts with our various photocopier vendors, and that has resulted in these savings. And again, this is just reflecting what it's been for the past couple of years. And finally, as always, I would like to say that a lot of the stuff that we're doing is funded by the Friends and grants and donations and things like that. So I'd like to thank everybody, especially the Friends, who are incredibly generous, and especially to the people who donate to the Friends, who are also generous. This 2.6% increase that I'm requesting would, without the support of the Friends and other people, would probably be a lot higher. So just, you know, there's this, just as an example, our programming budget is just, we have probably already spent the operating budget for programming at this point in the year. So any program that happens from now to the end of the fiscal year is probably being paid for by the Friends or donations or things. That is, so I think it's always important to recognize that and to thank them. And that's it for the operating budget.
Questions?
I have a question about the utilities. I know you said that those are, you know, those are obviously going back up again. But I'm looking back at the 23, 24 actuals, and it seems like we're sort of reverting to that norm. Is there a story there, or?
For which?
So for water and natural gas, looks like what you're requesting is very similar to what the actual was?
Yes, that I'm trying to catch up to what it actually has been. Because I think it has grown much faster than anticipated, especially the natural gas. That I actually had requested a very significant increase in natural gas last year, but it wasn't enough to catch up to what it actually had been.
So the numbers we're seeing here for the 24-25 budget, the one we're in currently, you're going to overshoot?
Yes,
those?
definitely again. That's okay. Yes, I apologize. Yes, so obviously I hadn't seen the actuals for 24 when I had done the budget for 25.
Well, that's the disadvantage.
Yes. That is, so, but now that I have seen them, that's why I'm trying to. And again, yes, it is sort of like a year behind, but that's just because I didn't know. So.
So, I mean, I don't remember off the top of my head what happens if you're gonna need more funding, or if you're gonna be able to balance it within your budget, if you're.
We typically are able to
Typically,
balance in
because
our
of staff
budget.
turnover,
Yeah.
they
It's in the
have
budget.
typically in their budget to cover the overage in utilities.
Right.
Yeah, so that definitely happened last year, say,
Yeah,
when we did go
definitely last
over.
year.
That, there was money in our budget to cover that.
Right,
think
because
that
I don't
should happen
remember you
again.
coming back for that.
No.
So just to come back to this now, do you think this is gonna be adequate? Or do you feel comfortable with this estimate of what you would need?
I do feel comfortable. I did
Okay.
talk to Tony about this, I should say. We had a conversation about it. And so I think the rates, the new rates, especially for natural gas, are locked in for some period of time.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, they're locked in for another year or so.
yeah, so they'd risen substantially, but again, they're locked in. So until there's a new contract, I think these should be about where we are.
So this is about tracking with actual?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't see any, I mean, obviously, we can't predict if there'll be a
If it's cold.
incredible winter or an incredible summer or
Yes.
whatever. We can't
Yes,
control
let's
that,
not
but,
go
you know,
there.
yeah.
That's all we'll do. Thank you.
Other questions?
Eric, the natural gas cost is primarily heating?
Yes, and hot water, I assume, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
How's your boiler?
Don't ask.
I mean, usually that's where it goes at that point. Do you want to
25
talk
years
about
old.
capital?
Sure, yes.
Okay.
So there's nothing for this year, nothing for the next year either. So this is all looking out a little further. The first is $50,000 for paint and wallpaper for the interior of the library. This had previously been in the building maintenance budget for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. Brad didn't want to keep it in his budget, so I said I'd put it in mine. I mean, maybe he thinks it's not as important. I do think it's very important. The library has not been painted or wallpapered except for in very small areas since it was opened in 1999. So there are definitely areas that have a lot of scuffs and some peeling wallpaper and things like that. And obviously it's not like the end of the world, but I do think it's nice to have a, for lack of a better word, classy library. And that's what we're trying to do here. So this is what we'd like to do. This is for FY28. And again, this is sort of a placeholder. If we do this, it doesn't have to be in 1 year. It could be split over several years or whatever. But I do think it's important that it gets done at some point. Any questions on that? And FY29 is $35,000 for carpeting for the main sort of adult area of the library. Again, this is also a placeholder. I'm not sure if this will need it. Actually, I put this in here several years ago. That carpeting was done in 2013. It'll be 15 years old in 2029, obviously, or past that. So that is about the lifespan of carpeting. It actually looks in pretty good condition to me, so I can't, we'll see what happens in 2029. But I did want it in there because 15 years seems like about the time when well-trafficked areas will need to be replaced.
Is this the carpeting that goes in tiles?
Yes, this is, yes.
I remember when we did that in 2013 with the tiles, yeah.
Yes, so, and the tiles have been helpful, obviously,
Right.
We've had spills and things
Because
that,
you can repair just what's
yes.
worn.
But eventually, obviously, if people are just walking on it every
Right.
day, it
Right.
gets worn.
Right. Any questions?
Eric, thank you, thank your commission, and also thank the Friends. And I'm curious to know at some point that we got to talk about how we could also thank the Friends.
Yes,
Because
no.
they are a very important aspect of what we're doing here, so.
Yes, they're wonderful. We, and I in particular, are very lucky
Yeah.
to have them, so thank you, yeah.
Yeah, well, you gotta have friends.
Thank
Okay.
you, Eric.
Okay. Thank you all for coming.
Mika, has any efficiency testing been done in the library?
From a energy
Like,
standpoint,
Yeah, like if
We're
heat
working
is
on-
the biggest source.
we're working on getting that done. We just had a meeting today with UI
Okay.
to see about getting an audit done.
Yeah.
And then doing a study and seeing exactly what we can do. But no, so far, from my perspective, it hasn't.
Okay,
But we're working on it.
great.
I'm only
Thank you.
worried about, we're still worried about the leaks in the library, right?
No, the,
In the basement? Wasn't Brad talking about a damp basement problem?
he was, and I don't know where we
Yes,
stand on that,
there's
yes.
Yeah.
a leak in the basement of
There's
the
always
library.
Was that in his?
Okay, we're gonna move
Yes.
on to,
Building maintenance.
Tony's gonna talk to us about the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. We could review the capital portion first. There are 3 projects in the capital portion of the budget. The first is, I think the selectmen are aware, we have some funds from our grant, from our grant from the GATV to update this room. And that's, what, Karen, $20,000 roughly? $22,000? So we had a quote of approximately 60, mid-60s to update this room with new panel here instead of a screen, right? So we can see what's going on in front instead of having to look back. A number of other improvements, power, we discussed, projector in the ceiling, right?
Wait, I'm sorry, would we have outlets by our feet or something?
That's what we're looking
Okay.
into, yeah. So
That would be
because
nice.
we're plugging.
That would be
That was
great.
Bright's idea.
I got the cord going on it.
So,
That's less technology than it is the structure of the floor.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's,
we might
Whatever
have
it is,
to.
it's 21st century.
So
We're trying.
no,
We're
it's,
trying.
it's over 100-year-old basement is
Right.
what
Right.
So our goal
20th
is, that's our goal for, so there's $46,000 in the capital budget for July 1, of which 26 is general fund and possibly $20,000 in the next phase of grant funds. So we can use the grant funds over 2 years, combined with a small contribution from the general fund to be able to complete the renovation of this room.
Tony, that's the Cable Advisory Council or
Correct.
their GATA subcommittee?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, that's great,
Yeah.
because we haven't used it in several years. right?
Correct, right.
Great.
Tony, can you just clarify, because I believe it was said the grant was 22, but I'm seeing 20 on,
Well, it changes a little bit
What-
each year.
okay.
So that's just our.
Oh, I
assess-
see.
That's our,
Divided amongst the town.
yeah, so that's
Okay.
just our guess. It's usually, it's around that. Sometimes it's a little less, sometimes it's a little more. 1 year we got 36, yeah.
And that's money collected by subscribers, it's on your bill, you're paying
Right.
into that.
Right.
So it's the taxpayers' money,
Okay.
different route.
Not a tax. It's
Still a tax,
Not
right?
tax. Usage
Looked a lot
fee.
like a tax.
What else I got?
I have another engineer coming up next week to take a look at the room and specs.
Okay.
The second project is a project we'd like to at least keep in our 6-year capital plan as a possible expenditure to the town. That's out 1 year, but that's for the demolition of the former country clubhouse. That's something I think we should at least keep on the radar here as a possibility.
Tony, I think you brought this up last year, I'm not sure.
Mhm.
Do you expect it, as we bump it out further, to cost more?
Yes,
So.
definitely.
Okay.
We've
Absolutely.
actually discussed
We're talking
bringing
about
it
moving it
in.
up a year.
From my perspective, I'd like to see us move it in, but that we felt it would be the discussion we would have at the Board of Selectmen, for safety reasons and for caring for it. Obviously, ideally, it would be great if the plan that we're developing works in such a way as we can get a developer or someone else to care for that. But I think we should be responsible and budget for it so that if that doesn't happen, it still gets done.
At some point, you have
That's-
to make a decision as to the risk involved with having
Right.
that structure there, and whether it's time to remove it, the town to remove it.
So
Yeah.
that portion of it in particular, I think is important that we consider timing on it as well. And,
Does-
But we'll
Yeah.
reassess once the planning has
Yeah,
gotten
no,
further
definitely, yeah.
along.
correct, we
Okay.
can, but in the meantime, obviously, we're looking at what do we want to fund for next year. I think that's something during our Board of Selectmen discussions we should talk about in terms of timing.
Does the same go for remediation? or would-
Remediation, less so.
Less so, yeah.
Less
In
urgent.
Yes, less
Yeah,
urgent,
less
only
urgent,
because
yeah.
there's not as great a safety, until we do something with it, it's not as great a safety risk as the building is, so. But it's time, I think, to do something on that.
Okay. What else?
That's it for the capital, for the
Okay.
selectmen.
And any questions on the capital side for Tony or Mika? No? Okay, moving on.
For the operating budget, I'm happy to go through some of the larger increases. If you have any questions on any of these lines, please feel free to just let me know. I would say the first is the clerical line is up 6.76%. That is for an adjustment to a position in the Selectman's office, which was reviewed by the Personnel Committee and is on the agenda for the Board of Selectmen for tomorrow, is it Thursday? And so that's that increase there. Another is the general professional services. That is for the fully funding the Goldman and York planner position that we have. This current year, we had some grant funds to offset that, and so this would be fully funded in that particular for FY 25-26, which is the reason why it's up by almost 60%.
The overtime clerical, Tony, I think we didn't put any in.
Oh, right, I'm
the
sorry,
last
yeah.
budget, and-
Overtime clerical is, it's similar, if you look at the actual in 23-24, and I would imagine it's the same as gonna be for this year. That's actual overtime costs for clerical personnel to do mostly for clerking other boards that do not have someone taking minutes. That's mostly what that is.
Can we require boards to have someone taking minutes to avoid that cost?
I find what happens is that doesn't actually happen.
By statute, we have to have the minutes and the agendas posted.
Yep.
And it's actually as a result of having done that process, in other words, requiring the boards to do it, that we were negligent.
The agendas wouldn't get filed in time, the minutes wouldn't get filed in time. It was just difficult to sort of keep track of all the various.
Is there any possibility of not having it be overtime, but just being a clerical position that works at night?
You could get I suppose you can get somebody, if it's a part-time position, if someone who just does minutes, I suppose.
I think they did that at the Amity Board of Ed.
Yeah.
Because they recognized that overtime was,
Depending on
More
the
expensive.
hours, it could be greater than the 6,000, but
I was
right
gonna
now.
say,
Could be.
this is not a huge amount of
Plus the,
dollars at this point.
it's on some boards
Oh,
and
I
commissions,
thought-
it helps to have somebody who's on staffs because they sort of get the
That is
flow
true.
from what's going on during the day, so they can sort of help to.
I remember Jerry being very helpful in the Ag
Right.
Commission. Yes.
That's an example, right?
Yes.
You also might want to keep people on boards and commissions because they're all volunteers. If who
Right.
wants to take minutes?
And
It's not-
that's the
not
challenge,
good.
exactly. It's not like we're paying those
It's
folks
found
to
it
do
to
what
be
they're doing.
enjoyable.
Yeah.
So,
It's
Yeah, well, I mean,
a volunteer, you know, they're all volunteers.
just looking for ways to cut our spending down. This seems like one that maybe could exist, but.
Anything else you want to highlight?
The town council is sort of a work in progress. That's still to be determined. We don't have a definitive answer on that yet,
And
so
the-
that could change.
and that's the retainer for the town council. That's
Right.
the actual expense for the town council.
Right.
can I go back to that general professional services?
Sure.
Is the Goldman and York number, so we had budgeted 79, an amended budget number of 79,688 for this current year,
Mhm.
and it's showing projected 92. Is that just usage or?
So the projected 92 is because we received the grant for the Goldman and York piece. So we were able to fund that through the
So
grant.
some additional grant money to pay for additional hours than we had
Correct.
planned?
That's correct.
Okay.
What we had
And then-
planned, we didn't plan, we budgeted, I think, originally 50,000. And, you know, for a full year of full service, it's much more than that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so going forward, the 95,111 is just doing the same amount of work that we had grant funding,
Right.
but no
If you
grant.
look at, right, correct. And if you look at the detail in the budget, the Goldman and York planning is 83,928. And we were at 50.
And there's other services.
Correct, there's other
Something
things in
I
there.
see.
There's employee assistance
Yeah.
program, there's,
Yeah. So I think we talked when we went into the Goldman and York contract to say that, you know, doing it as contract services is one approach. Hiring someone is a different approach where it looks like we're getting, you know, if this is gonna be our experience, that amount of money, that's not what would be available for a salary, obviously, because.
because of benefits.
Benefits is
Right.
like another half on top
Correct.
of that, right? But the assessment of whether it's valuable that way, or is the Goldman and York contract just annual, we're just re-upping annually?
Correct.
So we
Thank-
could-
They've
So you
given
could
us.
change
Thanks
at
for
any
asking
point.
this.
Yeah.
I'm curious at what point, as a Board of Selectmen member, it's unclear to me, honestly, what this consultant is doing. Like, I know what planners do, but I haven't seen, perhaps I've missed something, but like reports of the services rendered. that we're paying for. And I'd imagine the townspeople would be interested in seeing what their tax dollars are going towards for this as well. And at what point do we, if we, maybe it's a town staff decision, but assess the value? It's hard for me as a taxpayer to look at this and say, this is worth my money, without really understanding what this person is doing
It's a good and
for
valid
us.
point, and what we can do is at least once or twice a year, maybe even once a quarter, have them come in. I can tell you, from our perspective, it's worth the money, but I understand your point. It's not, it's
I
what
have
we
no
see
idea.
on a day-to-day basis
Yeah.
that he's contributing as opposed to what you see. So what we'll do is have them come in on a quarterly basis, and we'll do a full report in terms of what they've provided, the reports that they've provided, the assistance that they helped, the meetings that they've attended, all of which is happening, and it's happening significantly. When we started, candidly, we were concerned because we didn't feel, it was like, I didn't see a tangible report. I wasn't, same concerns that you're expressing. But as we engaged and we started doing more from a town perspective, their expertise, and one of the reasons that this method is preferable right now, and I feel it's something we should go forward with, is because what they've demonstrated is the expertise that they're bringing in goes beyond what the individual is providing. We have a lead person for Goldman and York, but we also have other resources behind them that are providing services, and they're helping with, for example, the Beecher enrollment process and doing analysis that's very specific to us versus what we have regionally or what we have along those lines. From a housing perspective, in terms of what the data that we can use, and providing data that can be used for evaluations and things of that nature. The EDC, they're working very closely with he's working very closely with the EDC at this point down in the business district. He has reached out to a number of different property owners that I suggest when I make contacts with property owners, if there's something they're looking to do, he's got a better feel. He knows the zoning regulations, or if there's changes that are necessary, he keeps in touch with that. So all this kind of stuff, there's certainly, your point is well taken.
Yeah.
And
Well, thank you.
what we'll do is we'll make sure that we communicate that better so that the public can know as well.
Thank you.
So thank you for making it.
So that kind of brings up the question of, like, bringing in the services with this individual, something like enrollment projections, that's in the Beecher budget too. So do we continue to have Beecher's expending money on enrollment projections when we could bring it in-house? Maybe there's consolidation that could.
Yeah, they are communicating. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things that's being done. It's a discussion we're having. The information that they provided versus two different sources of getting that information. Is there different information? And it allows us to compare to see, particularly where enrollment is concerned. Because if you're wrong on enrollment, you can make that's a big ticket item.
Right.
So we're going beyond the single source and looking at a different source, and they're able to provide us with options in terms of who we can look at or what we should do and how we should approach it.
Yeah.
So,
Just
They're all
knowing how-
providing us slightly different information as well
Right.
that complements. It's not the same information from different sources. It's complementary information, so it is additive to the conversation.
Yeah, just knowing how difficult it is to do enrollment projections if we're paying for it twice and then it's still not panning out. It's a little frustrating.
in some cases,
Yeah.
you're going to do that anyway
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you want more than one source. In
Sure.
case, you want
Yeah.
to compare to see, make sure you're getting two sources.
Yeah.
So you know, and then they're bringing on top of that their own personal experience, their own, I shouldn't say personal experience, their own professional experience in terms of what they've done with other towns.
Right.
So-
And the same is true at Amity. They have a different firm doing the
Mm-hmm.
enrollment projections. So there's really
Right.
3 demographer looks. So,
Yeah, we really haven't done much from an Amity standpoint with our town planner. It's really been focused on the Beecher in terms of additional information, so.
great, thank you.
Anything else, Tony?
Another item that I just want to highlight is printing and binding, and that is the reinstituting the mailer, the hard
Newsletter.
copy newsletter that is sent to all households. That was originally removed from the budget in 24-25 and was added back in for next year. You
It
can
was
see-
removed for the budget prior to the Woodbridge Town News going full online.
Right.
So
Correct.
once they
That's
went full
correct.
online, there was no document that, so if you're not a person who's on your computer and getting email updates or digital type information, this is the one thing that does go out to everyone. So we reinstituted, and we reinstituted it as you noticed, an abbreviated version. It used to be 8 pages, and now it's 4 pages. So this reflects the smaller version of the newsletter, just to at least be able to get some information out there to
And is that sent quarterly or
send monthly.
Monthly.
It's send
10 times
10 times a year.
Okay.
Yes, 10, is it 10 or 11?
Yep.
10, okay.
Yeah.
And is
So-
that,
Thank you.
if you roll that back to the 23-24, it was 2,293, that was the full year, same number of issues, just the postage and printing.
Right.
Paper costs were much lower.
Correct.
So it's a
That's because
big
paper costs were a lot.
escalation.
We haven't really changed the ad prices, right, Karen? I don't think. I don't think so. But the paper was a lot less, and the costs were a lot less.
So there's
That's
some
why.
revenue that offsets this.
There's ad revenue. It's closer to $20,000 a year, a little more maybe,
Huh?
for the full cost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, so this incorporates the ad revenue?
correct.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And the ad revenue is a commitment on an annual basis, so.
Okay.
Right, so when we cut it last year during the budget process and we restored it, is that 6,000, that's for the full year? And so next year's 6,000 is the full year as well, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And was that like just a internal line item transfer? We didn't do a budget request for that when we did it, did we?
For the 6,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't quite, that's just an estimate. So we'll have to see if it gets that high, but we haven't done one yet, no.
Okay, anything else the Board of Selectmen you want to talk about? Or any other
No.
questions for Tony?
Tony, what grant did we get that funded and how much of the Goldman and
Was it a
York?
housing grant?
It was a DOH grant,
DOH
Department of Housing grant it's a DOH planning grant specifically.
And how much was that for? do you know?
$40,000. No, I'm sorry,
$50,000.
$50,000, excuse me.
What were the obligations associated with that grant?
Regular reports in terms of what we're doing.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, pretty much it.
Reports about what?
The activities that they're participating in.
Okay.
So we have quarterly reports we have to send based on the activities that the planner is participating in.
But there's no stated objective we had to give about in terms of use of the funds for the grant, right?
No.
Is there anything similar? I'm sure you guys have already looked at this, but there's nothing similar we could replace that with to help offset?
Oh, we're looking at, yeah.
We're actively looking for
We're
that.
actively looking at, we can't, this one won't be available. This was a grant specifically as a result of our communication with DOH and telling them kind of where the town was and what we wanted to do, and they say, hey, we have this available this year, and we can help you out in terms of getting started since you don't have a planner at all. But now we're looking for other sources in order to, identify funds that we can get to offset some of these costs.
Okay. Thank you both.
Okay, moving on, yes?
Yep.
I think we're on general administration, 1140.
Okay. So we'll pull that up. General administration is primarily our insurance. And there's other items in here. There's utilities for this building for the town hall. That's electric for town hall. That's gas for town hall. And the rental equipment is for the copier and the postage machine here at town hall. The insurance liability is, of course, the big item here. And I guess the big question with insurance liability is the impact that the fires will have on our rates. And that's really an open question at the moment. After speaking with our insurance consultants, I think we're doing well with our workers' compensation. That's not in this line, that's in another line. But the property is where a lot of that risk will exist. And so this does happen occasionally. I remember after 9/11, there was a big reinsurance after Katrina. Every time there's a major disaster, we always see an uptick. What I thought was interesting was that he said they're seeing some stress on the individuals sometimes get insurance on high-value items, paintings, artwork, stuff like that. Because a lot of that was destroyed in the fires, there's a lot of claims coming in for that kind of activity. And so that's an area where they're seeing a lot of property exposure. I thought that was interesting. Yeah.
I have a question. This liability covers all town properties?
Does not
This
cover Board of
premium
Education.
Does not, right, so
Yeah.
not Board of Education, but all other town of Woodbridge
Correct.
properties.
It's property, auto, and liability,
Okay,
professional liability for boards,
okay.
for police, it's law enforcement liability.
Right,
There's property, there's auto.
okay.
There's also, yeah, we also have bonds for our, we issue bonds for our tax collector and our treasurer. Fuel, there's storage tank liability.
So that's all in this,
It's all in this,
except for the things
correct.
that you
The only
mentioned?
thing, yeah, the only thing that's not in here is workers' compensation.
Okay. Other questions for Tony on general administration?
So I just wanted to ask about water. Again, it's the same pattern. We're sort of reverting back to the norm. of-
Right, same pattern. Yeah.
Okay. Same thing's happening. It's not our usage. It's just,
It's like,
What happened was it increased a few years ago, as Eric mentioned, here in 23, 24, and we never, we weren't sure in 23, 24, 25, because 23, 24 wasn't over, and so that's why 25, 26 is
we
higher.
took a conservative approach.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
okay,
That's good.
moving on to government access television. Line 1135. That has a capital.
There's no
component.
capital, actually. Originally, we had the one we had for this room, and we moved it to the selectmen.
Oh,
That's
I
why it was
see.
originally said
Okay.
capital, but there's no actual capital for
Okay.
government access television.
Anything to say about this that
Um,
you want to point out?
Not particularly, it's
Yeah.
just for,
Information. Any questions on this? It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, is it
There's
for
more.
shooting more, is it more
Correct.
hours of their work?
yes,
That's it?
yes.
And we're continuing with the process where we didn't replace Who Afford, but we're distributing
Correct.
the
Between,
work. And they're doing a great job.
they're doing an excellent job, right?
Yep.
So they're hoping that it's for more recording of more meetings.
Sure, and so the commission isn't here to guide that, and the commission used to look at a bylaws document, but we're still following those bylaws, or maybe that's something to refresh at some point?
We're evaluating that at this point in time to see if we want to continue with the commission or make them into a department. Generally, just keep them as a department without necessarily a commission behind it, similar to what we do with some of the other smaller departments, town clerk, tax collector, things of that nature. So the benefit and the reason, part of the evaluation is, can we secure a resource from a commission standpoint that would help us with potential grants and things of that nature? And if we're able to do that, then obviously there's some value there. If we're not able to do that, it seems to be a commission that folks don't stay with, if you will. And it's been a bit of a challenge to get quorums and function as a commission.
Yeah,
So-
so having been on the group that established it in ordinance and set the bylaws and all that, there are some pieces of it we should probably consider before, I take it, what you're contemplating is going back to ordinance and removing it. It's a process, right?
And that's why the evaluation process is taking a little bit of time, because we don't want to go through that and find out that, wait, it might have worked if
Yeah,
if
there's
this
some-
so-and-so was available
Right.
to
Well,
do
and there's
something, it
some-
would have worked well.
There's some key functionality there,
Mhm.
so we'll discuss it, not part of the budget, but somewhere along the line.
It is definitely worth discussing, so
Yeah.
I'd welcome that.
Good.
Okay, let's stick to budget, as you just said. Board of Finance. Anything you want to say about this?
Certainly, I'd say the one increase that's worth noting is the professional audit services. We've had decreasing number of audit firms auditing municipal government, and we've seen prices increase also as a result.
And you've been saying that for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, our contract was up with RSM this past audit, so we've just issued an RFP, and we've gotten some interest in it. The earlier you issue an RFP, the better, because as towns start to issue RFPs, they start to fill up their schedules, and we will have some results for that in next month.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw the updated RFP. I've been trying to spread the word as much as possible.
Thanks for being so on top of that, Tony.
Yeah, because some towns wait until April or May and they're stuck, they don't have an auditor.
Right.
So then you have to call auditors and you have to, solicit bid pricing, and it's always more expensive.
Any other questions about the Board of Finance budget? Contingency is the way it is, it's the same, okay? All right, I think that concludes tonight. We are meeting again on Thursday. And again on Tuesday. So make sure your calendars reflect that.
Can I ask a quick question about, so we have 2 more presentation meetings, and then the Board of Selectmen will consider, is it the 12th that we're
Yeah.
looking
Yes.
to do that? Consider and act on the 12th.
Unless we
if
opt
we
not
can.
to, right, unless for some reason we say not to, but yes, that's the plan right now. Into that end, our agenda should reflect the fact that we want to spend some time on
Might
that.
be, yeah, lengthy.
Isn't the 12th also the
We also have the
tri-board
tri-board at
meeting?
5.
Oh, that's at 5, okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn from the Board of Finance.
So moved.
And is there a second? All in favor? Okay, we're out of here.
Motion from the Board of Selectmen to adjourn?
Second.
Second, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, everybody go home.
Thursday.
Yeah.
We'll be here at 5:30.